In this lesson, we're going to discuss the control panel. If you'd like to follow along, go to File, Open, and in Chapter 2, open 0203, get control of the control panel, and just click Open. The control panel is a contextual panel. What this means is if I select one kind of an object, I'm going to get totally different options in the panel than I would if I select another kind of an object. So let me go into my text frame here and click in my text frame. And you can see now, instead of positioning and size and various transformations of an object, I'm instead getting a type menu and a bunch of possibilities, a bunch of choices for type formatting. So it is a contextual panel. Let me go back into my selection tool and select my red rectangle. Advanced users tend to use keyboard shortcuts quite a bit because they help to save time to accomplish tasks faster. There are commands for using the control panel as well. If I hit Command 6 on a Mac, Control 6 on a PC, it actually will highlight the first field in the control panel. And once I'm in that first field, I can move around the entire panel by using my Tab key. So if I hit Tab, it goes to the next available field. And if I keep doing it, it's going to move through the panel from field to field to field. But let's say I go too far and I want to go back a couple of fields. Well, I can shift into reverse. If I hold down my Shift key and hit Tab, it goes backwards through the fields. So that can save a whole bunch of time. Now, in the control panel itself, you'll see next to the fields, immediately to the left of each field, is an up and down arrow. If I click the up arrow, it will go to the next available unit of measure. If I hit my down arrow, it's going to get smaller. But I can also use keyboard shortcuts to accomplish that same thing. Let me show you. If I hit my up arrow on my keyboard, the object is getting bigger and bigger and bigger each time I hit the up arrow. If I hit my down arrow, it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller in the width every time I hit my down arrow. And you'll notice something kind of interesting. It seemed to be getting bigger and smaller from the center out. That's because of something in the control panel called the reference point. When InDesign first came out, the reference point was a major breakthrough in layouts. And the reason is, before there was a reference point, everything on the computer happened from the upper left-hand corner. Whether you were bringing a picture into a frame or you were resizing or rotating an object, it always happened from the upper left-hand corner. The reference point allows you to pick an origin point for any kind of transformation. So if I click on one of the vertical center points in my reference point, it's going to change the object from the center in or out. If I click my lower right point, everything is going to resize from the lower right bounding box point in my object. And this can save a tremendous amount of time when you're working on a layout. Let me click on one of those center vertical points. I chose the top center point, which is this point in the object. And if I decide to make my object smaller in the width, it's going to resize from the center in. If I make it larger, it's going to do it from the center out. So if I have an object that's already centered, I don't have to recenter it after resizing the object. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't know about the control panel, and actually all panels and all dialog windows, the fields are actually calculators. So if I get an insert point in my width field, and I decide to make this object 2.375 inches wider, well, I'm going to type a plus mark after what's in the field, and then 2.374. I don't have to add inches because the preferences in this particular document are already inches. And now all I have to do is hit return or enter. And it made it 2.375 inches wider from the center out. Well, I wonder if it's possible to multiply. Well, let me get an insert point in my width field again, and the multiplier sign is an asterisk. So if I hit Shift 8, and then how about 2? I'll multiply it by 2, and I'm going to hit enter or return. And you can see it got twice the width, which went right off my page. But why don't we try dividing? I'm going to get an insert point again next to my width, and this time type a /2. So I'm going to divide by 2. And now it's half the width. Now, I wonder if it's possible to move an object, let's say 24 points. Well, I'm going to select this object down the bottom, the square red rectangle, and I'm going to go into my X field, which is the X positioning, and I'm going to type a plus mark, and how about 24 points? 24 PT for points. And let's see if that works. It's mixed units of measure. And if I hit return or enter, it actually moved it 24 points. So in these fields, not only in the control panel, but any panel that has to do with any kind of measurements, and also any kind of dialog window, I can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Now, the newer versions of InDesign have earned their advanced math degree. Well, what do I mean by that? Let's say I wanted to change the width of my top object, but I wanted to do something more complicated than just dividing or adding. Maybe I want to do both at the same time. Maybe what I want to do is first divide by 2. So it's /2. And then I'm going to add a space plus 1.5. And I'm going to use the inch mark. I could also type in IN. It understands both. Now, if I hit enter or return on my keyboard, it actually did the math. So InDesign now can do more complex math expressions than ever before. In the next lesson, we're going to continue discussing the workspace and preferences.